All right, welcome everyone. Tuesday morning, bright and early here. Thanks for joining us today. And yeah, we are excited to get this session started. Cooperative tool lending has been a historic practice in agriculture and served as an important link of access and support for our local communities. It can work as a successful model to save on expensive infrastructure and seasonal equipment that is only needed for a short period of time. So this session is exploring tool lending best practices. We have a panel here of four folks to talk about that with their lessons learned, solutions going forward, and also just discussion amongst them because we know there's still a lot to learn from each other on appropriate tool lending. And we're really excited for this time in California as well, which I'll get into in a minute. But it's time to really reclaim the concept of a sharing economy that is cooperative versus the models that are more co-opted that we're seeing nowadays through these apps that folks are using. Um, and I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Elizabeth Vaughan. I'm a senior manager at Community Alliance with Family Farmers, and I manage our small farm tech hub. So this access to appropriate technology is near and dear to my heart. So excited for this panel. So I already mentioned this, but just some of our learning objectives for today. We're looking to share best practices from these examples that we have to talk about. We want to do some peer-to-peer learning with sharing possible solutions and discuss some of the challenges that we've experienced. Want to connect you as a farm with tool lending sites if possible, and if there's one available to you, or encourage more access to technology in your site if maybe there isn't any there. And we want to learn about upcoming grant funding opportunities that's coming down the pipeline in California and make sure folks are aware of this because we're at a right time to expand our lending library services across the state. And with our Q&A, we are planning to have time at the end to hear from you, the attendees, to our panelists. So please feel free to drop a question in the chat or in the Q&A box, and we'll collect those for the end or save it for that time too. And we'll have time for Q&A with everyone. All right. So yeah, we know accessing farm inputs, equipment, and resources at affordable price points for small farms can be very challenging, especially in particular regions across California. And we know one of the most common barriers for small farms to increase their implementation of ecological, regenerative, and sustainable farming is access to the right, and it's often specialized equipment and inputs, and at the right time of the year as well. I'm excited to have one of our panelists here to share a success story with some of their equipment that's led to more regenerative ecological practices. And our Small Farm Technology Hub is always seeking out ways for farmers to gain better access to technology, innovation, and knowledge on what tools and tech work for farmers. But there's social innovations that are at play with this as well that can be even more impactful for the small farm. We've all heard the get big or get out, but instead of one farm getting big, what about a big network of small operators working together to scale their collective impact and get returns on a collective investment? And that can happen through multiple channels where we all get together as a network, but we're mighty in numbers. So yeah, sharing that here. In California, we feel this panel will discuss more about this, but we feel that we're just in the beginning stages of lending. We know historically this has been a practice across the world in the farming community, and it happens every day. But as consolidation of farms continues to happen, farm sales happen, we know it's getting more and more difficult to access equipment. So we know there's a lot of different things that can happen versus specialized equipment versus general equipment needs. We know there's a lot of sharing out there happening. We've seen apps existing where you can lend out equipment and set a price, just like you would go to rent equipment at a tractor store. But this panel I'm excited for this panel because there's also an importance of a cooperative mindset where we're all working together. And so we're going to be hearing more about that as well. And just to briefly highlight, CAFF's Tech Hub did come out with a needs assessment on tools and technology with a focus on the San Joaquin Valley. And this report is called Small Farms and the Future of Ag Tech. I'll put a link in the chat in a minute here. But just highlighting that this report was just released in December, and we're really excited for this panel because it really helps lift up one of the recommendations that we learned from that report, which was equipment lending expansion needs to happen for our small farm community. They need access to tools, the right training and how to use it. And so we know this is a need that's happening, and we're excited to help address that, hopefully. Again, to address these barriers, we've organized this panel to highlight different strategies, lessons learned to help further along the journey of collaborative farming and tool lending. And we have several programs to share across California and the country. And we know these aren't the only examples, so we encourage you to speak up about your own experiences. Maybe you've worked on a more informal system, or maybe you're just starting your system. This system is meant to spark imagination and inspiration for how small farms can work together. So really excited to hear all your ideas as well and have time for that at the end. So California is an interesting time. There's going to be they have been existing grants, and there's going to be more upcoming grant opportunities coming through the governor's budget. We have the climate bond, Prop 4, that was passed in California that's going to allow for more funds for this. All of this is sometimes with the California budget, things, change here and there, but right now, this is what is benchmarked for some funding that's coming out for regional farm equipment sharing programs, other programs that may involve equipment sharing. Some of these grants will be able to get tied with that. So we're looking at certified mobile farmers markets, information technology resources that have been set aside. And the Healthy Soils program may also include resources around making equipment available to farmers. So exciting time. Money is coming. Let's get it. All right, Evan, we have a poll question we'd love to share with the audience here to see why folks are coming today. Get that launched, but it's a question on why are you here? Are you looking for tools to borrow? Do you have tools to lend? Both? Or is there another reason you're attending? Maybe you're just interested. Love to hear what folks have to say for that. Oh, awesome. I see someone's interested in starting a tool equipment lending program locally. That's amazing. Sweet. And then maybe people will connect here. Maybe someone's got a storage for equipment lending, and then someone wants to start the programming of it, and people can mix and mingle today. Cool. The processes people are using to create and maintain a tool lending system. Absolutely. RCDs have tools to lend. Excellent. Yeah, we're looking forward to hearing more from Ian on their experience lending library too. Awesome. All right, this is great. Can we share the results maybe, Evan, so we can all see how folks answered this in addition to the chat? All right, we got a few people who are looking for tools. One person has tools to lend, both, and then we got a lot of others. Awesome. For more compost spreading tools. Oh, we were just talking about compost spreaders the other day. Excellent. See if anyone has stuff to share about that. All right. Great. Well, thank you everyone for participating in that poll. We're now going to move to the meat of today's presentation, our hearing from our panelists. So excited to welcome these four individuals to hear about the programs that they're working with on tool lending. We have Ian Hanley, who's Executive Director of the State Conservation Committee at the New Hampshire Department of Agriculture, Markets, and Food, calling all the way from the East Coast. So thank you for being with us today, Ian. And then we'll hear from Rebekka Siemens, farm owner of Gonzales Siemens Family Farm, on their equipment lending program. and Patrick Mitchell with Five Key Schools and Programs. The EAT Center, I believe, is what they like to call themselves, and he's coming from Riverside County. And then we have Amber, our lending library coordinator, who is working out of Fresno and the Parlier Kearney Agriculture Research and Extension Center on their new program that they implemented. So I'll now I'm really excited to hear from these folks, and I will now hand it over to Ian to present, and I can advance your slides for you, Ian.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, all the way from sunny New Hampshire, which is currently digging out of that snowstorm that just came through. But never a bad time to talk about equipment. And so I'm going to talk for a little bit about the low-cost rental equipment program that New Hampshire operates through our county conservation districts. So we have 10 counties in the state, and so we have organized 10 county conservation districts based off of those 10 counties. And so the conservation districts, if you're not familiar with, are locally led places for soil and water conservation. There's over 3,000 across the U.S. and a lot more in California than there are in New Hampshire. You can go to my first slide there. So just kind of give an overview of the program. As I mentioned, they are operated by the County Conservation District. In New Hampshire, we really like our locally led leadership, and when it comes to priorities and what people are doing with, especially with the conservation districts. And so each of our programs operates independently. They are all very similar, but they operate like a lot of them have similar equipment, but each district sets their, goes out and purchases what equipment they are interested in, how they're going to figure out what equipment they want, the price of rentals. So the rentals themselves are basic. The cost is basically just covering very like maintenance costs. That's pretty much what they're just trying to cover. So, rentals, depending on the size of the piece of equipment, are renting from anywhere from, $20 to $200, depending on the piece of equipment and how long they have it for. So really just covering those maintenance costs. And then those pieces will go throughout their county, and a lot of these pieces end up going to other counties that might not have them as well. And so this program started around 2010 with the hopes of increasing adoption of no-till and reduced-till practices. So some of the most common pieces of equipment that we have are those no-till drills. And we have those ranging pretty much from 6 to 10 foot widths on those, depending on the district. And so a lot of this came around because not just implementing those practices, but the pieces of equipment that are in these programs are, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 pieces of equipment that individual farms just don't have the capacity to be able to purchase on their own. Almost 3/4 of New Hampshire's farms are under 50 acres, and that continues to grow. It's with each ag census that comes out. And so we're actually seeing an increase in homesteading becoming more and more popular, and those farmers are interested in some of this equipment as well. So we're actually seeing a lot of the equipment that is being requested is actually smaller and smaller equipment. And so that seems to be one of the trends that we're noting. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, equipment really varies. And so we've got 2 conservation districts that are probably our biggest ones in the state, have roughly 12 pieces of equipment. And so 2 of our programs, as I mentioned, Cheshire County, which is the southwestern part of the state on the border with Vermont and Massachusetts. And then Rockingham and Strafford counties share a equipment program, and that's our southeastern part of the state, what we call the seacoast. This picture here is some of the equipment from Rockingham and Stratford's at Tuckaway Farms. And just all these pictures are basically equipment events where we have open houses and people can come and take a look at it, learn about them, check out what we've got, that kind of thing, which usually happen a couple times a year. As I mentioned, no-till drills are popular. Spreaders, aerators, walk-behind tractors are particularly common. And then even some newer stuff has become really popular. This county here, Stratford County, recently just got seed-saving equipment, which is pretty interesting. That's been something that some of their farmers have been looking for. And one of our other counties, Merrimack County, which is the center of the state, actually just got mobile chicken processing equipment because food processing, especially meat processing in the state, is a huge bottleneck. And so that kind of equipment was in demand. So really excited to see that the equipment that's being requested is being locally informed by what the needs are of people in the county. Next slide. So how do we fund our program? The majority of the equipment has come through what we call the Moose Plate grants. So in New Hampshire, we have conservation license plates. We do not like having a bunch of different license plates. We have a single license plate in New Hampshire that goes to a bunch of different sources. And so my organization, the State Conservation Committee, receives 20% of the revenue from the Moose Plate every year. So Moose Plates are $38 initially and $30 for each additional year. And then we operate a grant program from that, which the districts have been able to take advantage of for a variety of conservation projects, but to also get a variety of pieces of equipment. And so though that's been the main source for these bigger pieces of equipment, these $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 pieces. And in 2024, we were able to get the New Hampshire Department of Ag to allocate $580,000 in leftover ARPA funding for rental equipment purchase, which was really huge. The conservation districts in New Hampshire are not really on the forefront of many people's minds. They love to say that they're the best kept secret in the state. And so one of the things that I've been pushing at in my position is getting them out in front of the public more often. And I was really pleased to see the New Hampshire Department of Agriculture interested in utilizing some of that money. They had around $4 million total of leftover ARPA funds, and got a good chunk of that for rental. And 8 of our 10 districts took advantage of that and got some really amazing equipment, which they purchased last winter and were out in the fields with this past year. So quick turnaround, but really great opportunity to get some pieces. Next slide. So talking about some of the challenges that we have with this program. So we've been doing it for around 15 years. Ongoing maintenance is a huge problem. This stuff has to be stored somewhere, and most of our counties historically had county farms, but most of those have been turned into other stuff for the county, have been either sold off, those lands have been sold off, or they've been turned into the county prison, other buildings, just only a couple of our counties are actually still operating a farm on them. And so being like, hey, we need to store some stuff is a tall task. And so storage is a big issue. Right now, most of our districts store their equipment at their board, their supervisors' farms. So it can be scattered in various places. Some of our districts are utilizing local fairgrounds for winter storage to be able to stick it in a barn for a winter. Um, that's becoming less and less possible as these fairs are looking to uh, be more profitable in their off season, and so they're doing more boat and RV storage, and the cost of that is becoming prohibitive. So we're having to find new ways of storage. Um, One of the reasons I picked this photo, so this is a BCS tractor, a walk behind tractor with a bunch of different attachments, um, is that so Stratford County here went out and got a trailer, which you can see in the black trailer in the background, and they can do a bunch of things with this trailer because they keep the BCS tractor and all of its attachments in the trailer, and that also functions as storage for it. So it was a really great way of kind of keeping the whole package together and stored safely year round. So that's a big concern that we have that we're thinking about. A lot of this equipment, especially that equipment that was bought in the early 2010s, is starting to get to the end of its life and or requiring a lot of maintenance, and so that's a big concern for us. And so ongoing maintenance, storage, needing additional equipment. The trailers is always a thing. It's not just buying the piece of equipment; it's also the trailer for it. Um, Another challenge is rental terms. And so I mentioned that districts are able to set their own uh, policies when it comes to the rentals. And so a lot of them are kind of grappling with, somebody's got a 1 day rental, but it rains. Um, you know, can that farmer keep it for another day? A lot of this comes down to uh, how busy and how much demand there is for that piece. A lot of this equipment is needed. A lot of people are looking for it during one, short window of the year. And so how do you think about that and make sure that there's equity in that process to that, one farmer who doesn't have control of uh, the rain is still able to get the work done that they need to get done because they just because it rained 1 day without, forcing them to pay a larger and larger fee. So those are kind of some of the bigger things that the districts are thinking about, and I think are important to think about as you're planning a rental program. Next slide. And so a couple other things that are kind of on the horizon when we think about what districts are doing. First is access, addressing access issues. And that's because I mentioned that a lot of our farmers are small properties, and one of the big issues is that these farmers are farming with uh, they might not have a truck. A lot of them have Subarus, and Subarus don't exactly tow large pieces of equipment around, especially these people that are leasing small, like 5 acre, even less starter plots. They just don't have the access for it. Um, and so, how do we get these bigger pieces to those farms that need it? We've got a couple districts that have trucks that have been purchased specifically for the movement of equipment around the counties. So we're just starting to see how effective that program is. I'm excited to see how those numbers come in over the next few years. And then also dedicated staffing for the program. Most of our districts only have 1 or 2 staff members, and trying to operate a rental program, especially with 10, 12 pieces of equipment, is very time demanding. And then they're also trying to do other programs as well. And so trying to get dedicated staffing to run trainings for these, run equipment around, fix equipment is something that we're trying to move into districts being able to fund. And so that's a big issue. We've got a couple districts that are hoping to be able to hire seasonal people in the next year or two, but being able to fund a position like that is a tall task when most of these districts are not really funded particularly well. Each district gets around 50,000 from their county, which basically pays for their district manager's salary. And then after that, they don't get any money from the state. Um, and so trying to find additional money for a staff member is tough, to say the least. So that's kind of an overview of what we're doing in New Hampshire. I'm happy to take questions at the end. The next slide has my contact info, and I will send it back to Elizabeth for the next panel presentation.
Thank you, Ian. And I don't know if I had, maybe I missed the slide, but well, I can put your contact information in the chat maybe,
Oh,
but I didn't have that slide
sorry.
up.
Oh, I
Um,
might have put it at the beginning. Don't worry. Sorry. Yeah.
yeah, no, it's all good. And thank you so much for going over that. I know we were excited to have Ian on this panel because their program's been around for over 15 years now, and they're going through their next iteration of tool and equipment maintenance with just the lifespan of tools. And there was so much to learn from them when we met with them last year with some partners. And they also shared a whole bunch of their templates and lease agreements to have available to anyone who wants to learn from those and maybe copy the same language or just see how folks are structuring that. So we have a shared Google folder that everyone should be able to access, and we'll share that at the end because a whole bunch of people are able to upload examples and templates. So thank you, Ian, for representing the program and what you guys have been doing on the East Coast. We can learn from it here in California. I do want to ask you to talk about the no-till drill example that we talked about earlier with how that's kind of like a success story of how this tool lending program has really allowed farmers to kind of take it to the next level on their own.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, the no-till drills, the no-till and reduced till practices was kind of one of the big impetuses for the program. And so what we've seen is these farms that, have been renting it for a few years, because no-till is one of those things where like it's going to take a few years to be able to get to a point uh, where it becomes the norm. It becomes particularly like you're really starting to see the benefits of it. And so having a equipment available for renting is really important because then there isn't that initial like, well, you got to pay $30,000 to start doing this practice. They can get into it relatively inexpensively. And so what we've seen is farms that have rented them have moved. A lot of them have moved on to the point where they've said it's investment enough, and they've gone out and gotten their own. What we're seeing is a lot of local farms working together on these pieces, and so three, four, five farms in an area might share a single piece of equipment, and so they might go in together. One of them might buy it, but well, we're really not seeing. I mean, we definitely have people that rent year after year after year after year on it, but we're seeing a lot of these farmers who are coming in, working with the district on those initial rentals, working with NRCS on some of these practices, and then uh, kind of taking it onto their own, and then potentially using this for uh, other practices. And it's one of the reasons that we're seeing this kind of reduction in size requests for the equipment is that a lot of the people that are now asking for this equipment are even smaller than the ones who would, the initial purchases were a lot of the 10-foot drills, and now people are asking for eights, asking for sixes, as a lot of these smaller farms are now interested in starting to implement these practices. And so we've definitely seen the rental equipment, especially for no-till, be kind of a launching pad for farms to adopt these practices, and also adopting them, kind of taking the leap to purchase some of this equipment and work locally on implementing these practices.
Yeah, thank you for expanding on that. That was cool to hear that the value was proven. And so some of the farmers are going in together and purchasing it themselves. So they have more access and autonomy to it. So that's great. Thanks for sharing that. All right, we are more to learn from our other panelists. So we will next move to Rebekka here. with Plowshare Alliance. Yeah, Rebekka, eager to hear how things are working for you guys.
Hi, yeah. So I'm Rebekka Siemens, and I'm a farmer based in Kern County, but my family has been farming small grains for about 15 years in different locations around California. And 15 years ago, when we started doing grain farming, there was very little equipment for small scale farming, including first and foremost. Harvesting. So, one of the very first pieces of equipment that we started to share with other farmers was a combine, which is here in this picture. So, we kind of started very gradually and worked our way from a very informal and neighborly sharing to a more slightly formal but still informal organization now. So yeah, I think the this is just a brief list of kinds of equipment that we've gotten. We initially started buying old equipment that was at the right size for our operations and repairing it. And we've moved on now to buying some newer equipment as well. So we've got several grain drills, a small no-till drill. I think it's an 8 foot, it might be 6 foot. So it can go in orchards and vineyards, um, ring roller, compost spreader, seed cleaners, now an optical sorter, mills, and a bagger. So all kinds of things focused around um, processing and planting and harvesting small grains. So next slide. Um, Yeah, so we kind of became official in 2019 as the Plowshare Alliance, and this was mainly 3 farms initially in Santa Barbara, Kern, and San Luis Obispo counties, but there were a lot of other farms in the area that pretty quickly got on board. And so the alliance is yeah, currently structured as an LLC, but everyone is sounding interested in moving it toward a member-owned co-op. And besides the equipment that we already have, we are working on getting a mobile grain and seed cleaning trailer set up, which could travel farm to farm and operate directly after the harvest or later, but that would be the goal. So this is a little bit more just about how it works for our organization. The we basically generate an equipment wish list from everyone who's involved based on current gaps and pain points. Um, and so, like I said, initially the very first one was um, a combine that wasn't huge, and then from there, I think one of the next most requested items was compost spreading equipment because a lot of people were getting healthy soils grants. Um, and so it's just kind of has evolved like that, where we just get whatever piece of equipment is kind of highest on everybody's mind at that point in time. And I would say sourcing equipment has been pretty challenging. We've definitely had all kinds of experiences there. We've driven cross country to pick things up. We've um, bought used equipment locally. We've had retiring farmers donate equipment. And that can be in all kinds of states. So some of them are perfectly great and working wonderfully, and some are not. And then um, yeah. So we've also had to struggle with having the right tractor for some of the pull behind implements. So sometimes a farmer has that, sometimes they don't. So we've kind of, yeah, we just kind of hit one road block after another, but at the same time, um, there's been a lot of kind of cooperative spirit and people just figuring out together how to make things work. So, yeah, funding sources have been both state grants and private foundation funding, and then farmer member contributions. Um, Ongoing maintenance and cleaning is something that we ask people to do as they're using it, and it's part of the contract that you should do basic maintenance. And we provide some very basic training about what that is and how to do it when we uh, deliver the equipment the first time, or if someone comes to pick it up at that point. And we use the kind of the seed funding that we have to do the more costly maintenance and repairs that are a normal part of wear and tear or are necessary when we're rehabilitating an older piece of equipment. And so far, our membership is very kind of loose. It's based on a skin in the game concept of cooperation where you pay for your use of equipment and or you donate equipment or labor to the cause. And so that has allowed farmers who don't have a lot of capital to be able to use equipment, even if they can't pay uh, what would maybe be considered the normal rental fee. So basically, pricing is flexible for us. Go to the next slide. Yeah, so challenges, a lot of them are similar to the ones that Ian mentioned, all of them maybe. Transportation has been a consistent challenge. We do work mostly in sort of central California, but we have we have transported our equipment basically anywhere in the state, from the far south to the far north, um, depending on needs, and people can pitch in for fuel, obviously, if they're not driving themselves, if they're not using their own vehicle to drive. Storage is definitely an issue. Most of the storage is hosted at my farm in Kern County, but we've also used other storage spaces if somebody is using a piece of equipment and has the capacity to store it for a time when no one else is requesting it. Oftentimes it just stays there. Um, and then, yeah, scheduling is an issue because, like Ian said, everybody tends to need, the compost spreader or the no-till drill at roughly the same time. One kind of cool thing about California is that we have so many microclimates. So often, if we're kind of thinking ahead and reaching out to people who we know will likely be wanting pieces of equipment, we can somewhat stagger those based on different regional climate stuff in California. So that's been interesting. We do have duplicates of some equipment, but there's definitely a need for more, like of the compost spreaders and the no-till drills, especially. And also this, we have a medium-sized combine, the one that you saw in the picture, and we have a really small combine that's like could go between vineyard rows. And that one, there are a lot of people who want that one, and they tend to want it at the same time, and it tends to be a slow process for them to harvest. So that one is one that we would be interested in getting a second one of. And then I think the other issue that we are still trying to figure out how to navigate is the liability. So we use contracts similar to what rental equipment companies use in terms of people need to have their own liability insurance, and especially when they are hauling it with their vehicle, that has to be, they have to have their own insurance for that, of course. But there's still a lot of questions about that, and And, if something were to go really wrong with a piece of equipment, um, a lot of people just have concerns about that. But basically, we try to and have so far been pretty successful at maintaining just a cooperative spirit that everybody tries to leave the equipment in better shape than they got it. And for the most part, that's been the case. Um, it's like you don't want to pass it on to the next person and have it be full of dirt or weeds or something like that. So I think the positive part of working in kind of like a very person to person manner is that there is that kind of social responsibility that we feel. So thank you for being here.
Thanks, Rebekka. I really appreciate the focus on like the cooperative mindset and the social accountability you guys all have for each other, and they're, skin in the game. Folks are willing to help out and contribute in different ways. I know Ian was mentioning before his presentation how there's some farms that just like they let the equipment get stored on their farm, because it's just part of the network and helping each other out. So thank you for highlighting those things. All right, keep going. So next I got Patrick. We will hear from you.
All right. I'm Patrick Mitchell. I'm the Farm Operations and Cultural Center Manager for the Five Keys Ecological Agriculture Training Program. We call it the EAT program for short. We're in Riverside County. We operate primarily in the city of Norco, but we also have a contract with the city of Riverside to do some work there. We operate a small farm apprenticeship program that started back in 2020. We have, usually somewhere around 30 participants in that program at a time. We're just about to finish our sixth class of apprentices, and that's primarily our network that we share tools with. We Most of our farmers are market scale farmers that operate on a quarter acre to maybe 2 or 3 acres in size. So it's a lot of handwork. The equipment, like when I hear Rebekka talk about a combine, like that's way out of our realm. So we actually although we have a couple of tractors and we will do mowing and moving of compost and things like that for folks in our network. Primarily, what we lend is hand tools. Everything from a shovel to a broad fork. We do have some small walk behind pieces of equipment. We will be buying a new BCS here pretty shortly. But primarily what we do is hand tool scale. And you can go to the next slide if you want to. We really it's pretty basic stuff. We do lend out irrigation repair tools, rakes, shovels, hula hose, broad forks, that type of thing. And our network is pretty unique because we've worked with all of them. We've built relationships with them, and that's really the requirement to be part of our program, is that you've participated in our training programs. We do, in addition to the apprenticeship program, we also do at least 12 workshops during the year, and those workshops might be poultry processing, they might be on-farm compost making. We do canning workshops, all sorts. So we're getting a real diversity of folks who come through the program, and really that connection is what's required. My colleagues discovered that the Los Angeles County Library has a tool lending program, and so we've worked on adopting sort of what their lending requirements are, what kind of forms we require of our participants to get that information or to get that equipment. And it's pretty basic. It's pretty low key. If the tool breaks when you're in charge of it, you are required to replace it. Some basic things like that. We ask that 2 or 3 days is sort of the limit of the time that you have the tool, so that it can be available to others. We also we manage a 5-acre area that has graduates of our program are doing incubator farms on there. And so a lot of the use is right there on that property, and most of our tools are stored on that property as well. So, we're very small in scale, but it really has been a tremendous benefit. One of the things when we started the apprenticeship program, one of the things we really wanted to focus on is reducing the cost for new farmers to start. And tools and equipment, can add up really quick. So we wanted to make sure that things were available to them, and that's kind of what we have. Our challenges are, like everybody else that's spoken so far, everybody needs the same things at the same time. So we would look to kind of expand our collection of things. One of the reasons we're buying the BCS is to make sure that there's equipment available to more than one person at a time, and just sort of getting people to know how to use the equipment properly, and that kind of stuff is so we've done some additional training, and we'll expand on that. We currently don't loan the tractors, but we will do cooperative tractor work for folks. But maybe in the future it'll be a situation where we can train folks to use that equipment safely, and that'll expand our program. So that's kind of what we have. I look forward to answering any questions people might have, but other than that, that's us. So.
Thank you for that, Patrick. And yeah, the cooperative tractor work, is that like a service you guys are providing where you operate it and do
Yeah,
testing? Awesome.
yeah. So
Yeah, there's so many different models out here. So this is great to have such a selection, from the specialized harvesting equipment to the basic tools that everyone needs, that adds up to be hundreds and hundreds or thousands of dollars. So thank you, Patrick, for sharing that. All right, moving on to last but not least, Amber.
Hello, thank you, Elizabeth. Happy to be here today. My name is Amber Butland. I am the F3 Local Equipment Lending Library Coordinator, and as Elizabeth mentioned at the beginning, I'm based at the Kearney Agricultural Research and Extension Center, which is one of a few UC extension centers around the state. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the program that we have going. It's pretty new. I've been in my position for a year now, so we're just getting started. We have a few pieces that are ready to go, but not all of the pieces in our library are ready to go just yet for growers. So I'm working on getting that process wrapped up so we can get all the pieces that we have out. Oh, next slide, please. So just a little bit of background on how this started in the Fresno area. Some folks with the Cooperative Extension Office, the Small Farms team in the Fresno Cooperative Extension Office, found that through their providing technical assistance to growers on various grants, primarily healthy soils, that there is really a need for the equipment to implement those practices, like spreading compost and planting cover crops. So they acquired 3 pieces: a compost spreader, the Kubota front end loader that you see there, and an older Schmeiser drill for cover crops. And with the opportunity to, I guess, incorporate that need into the application for the F3 funding, we now have a larger scale library that we are trying to build for growers in the Central Valley and the F3 um, r- region, which is Fresno, Kings, Madera, Merced, and Tulare counties. Next slide, please. So again, we serve small scale growers in Fresno, Kings, Tulare, and Madera, and Merced counties, and the types of equipment that we have are listed here. So we have a couple of front loaders, a couple of BCS tractors, and nine attachments for the BCS tractors, and we have two of each of those because we have two BCS tractors. We have three different compost spreaders. The one that you saw in the previous slide, it transitioned from the Small Smart Farms program to the F3 local program. So we have that spreader from the previous slide, as well as a larger or a newer hydraulic spreader that you see here, and then a spreader that is for vineyards and orchards. We have weeders like finger weeders and tine weeders, drill seeders like the Smizer that you saw in the previous slide. We have a second one of those. It's brand new. It has a native seed attachment. So I'm really curious to work with a grower who wants to try that out. A vegetable seeder. It's a Wizard vacuum seeder, so the seed selection is really precise. A single row transplanter, a flail mower, some bed shapers, and plastic mulch layers of various sizes. Next slide, please. So how did we determine what pieces to purchase? So equipment selection for the library is informed by survey feedback from growers who attended basically a large equipment demo day at Kearney Agricultural Research and Extension Center toward the end of 2023. And when I started my position, I was handed the list of equipment that growers wanted based on those surveys, and I got to working with the university to purchase all the pieces that fit what they were looking for. Do I have standard operating procedures? Yes. So every piece either has an approved SOP or is in develop or an SOP is in development that I'm working to get approved for the pieces that we don't have ready to go for growers just yet. Maintenance, how do we fund it? That one we're still working on, what the most sustainable model might be, but it's a mix of modest service fees from growers, donations, gifts, grant funding, and so again, really just a combination of those things. Next slide, please. Do we transport the equipment? Yes. And in fact, growers are not allowed to transport the equipment that they borrow from us. So we will take it to your farm. We are right now a staff of 3, and that's a newly formed staff of 3. So we are, we're finding that, what our capacity looks like now as we get our new agricultural technician trained, and that sort of thing. But yes, we definitely do all the transportation. Are there training requirements? Yes, all growers must be trained before they are allowed to borrow equipment. And I note this on my challenge slide, but one of the things that I'm still working to figure out is what's the best approach to training, right? So is it having a large group training at Kearney where I go over, a classroom portion and reminders of PTO safety and then do a hands-on portion? Is it that I have the capacity to do a one-on-one training for the grower who calls and says, "Hey, I hear you have a front loader. Can I borrow it next week?" So I'm trying to figure out what that balance looks like. And where do we store it? We store it at Kearney. This is our new storage facility that was just finished, actually. And right now, the guys are moving our equipment into that storage facility. So we're very excited to have that. Next slide, please. Thanks. So I thought I would include some examples of pages that I have in their SOPs. This would be for the New Holland Workmaster 25 front loader. And I have images of, how our staff needs to tie down the front loader. And this is kept in a binder for staff that they can reference when needed. Next slide. And again, this is an example of a checklist that I have ready to go for my staff, making sure that they do everything that's required at drop off. Um, and I mentioned that we have a binder for staff. We also have a binder for growers that has all of the information that they get at a training, but then also a copy of the user manual should they need to reference it, and that sort of thing. Next slide, please. We have condition checklists for every piece. So this is at drop off. We go over with the grower what these things and we look at these things and we both make sure that we agree on the condition, and then they'll initial it, we'll initial it, and then when we go to pick it up, it'll be the next column. Okay, and I would just note like check in or check out at the bottom, and we can see how the condition has changed on the various criteria we're looking for. Next slide, please. This is a pre-inspection checklist that the growers who borrow a front loader need to use before they operate it on a daily, before they, each time that they use it. So part of the training is going over what our expectations are as far as checking these things and how we would like for them to check these various things. But it is really important to stress that the growers that they fill this out every time they use it, obviously even when we're not present. And there has been some confusion on that. So it's just like, well, this is an OSHA requirement, just as it would be, for your farm operation. If you had a tractor that an employee was using, you would want them to go through this inspection to make sure it's safe to operate. Next slide. And then we have an assessment that we do when we take the pieces of equipment to a farm. So basically, do they remember, what they need to remember from the training? And what I always tell growers is, like, we understand that you may have experience operating some of these things. It's just, can you demonstrate that you're familiar with our equipment based on what we've shown you in the training? Next slide. So insurance, growers are required to maintain general liability insurance or any other insurance deemed necessary, such as, does your automobile liability insurance cover your use of a front loader, for example? And they will need to demonstrate proof of insurance if we request it. Fees, this is the fee structure that we have set up. We currently do not have the infrastructure going at this time to collect this from growers, but it is something that once we do, we will be looking to charge these small fees. But one of the things that this is also on my challenge slide, so I'm skipping ahead of myself a little bit, but like, there's some like ambiguity as far as acres and gray areas there. And so I anticipate that could potentially be a challenge for us. Tracking, each piece is equipped with a tracking device so we can monitor its location. I can do that online and set up geofencing and all of that kind of stuff. Honestly, we just got the tracking devices, so I'm working to get that one going. But that's the plan. Next slide, please. Okay, so far a year in, what is working? I would say that the location of our library is working out really well, because we do a lot of work with the farm operations staff at Kearney. They're able to help us with like forklift operation, for example, and getting pieces on trailers, even if it's, just for, hey, we need to take pictures of these pieces tied down for the SOPs and things like that. They're able to provide some direction on maintenance, whether, if it's something that they can fix, they do. And then our program gets charged for the hours spent, or, I usually have to find the part and then take it to them. Or, we do have, POs set up with vendors as well. So it's just a matter of determining, what the issue is and who the best avenue for repairing it. SOPs and checklists, I would say that those are working. They are time intensive to put together, but I think that they really provide a lot of structure for what we have going. So it's working. The transportation method so far we're, that's working out. We're doing the transportation. We are using back roads because as we get going, that's what I feel most comfortable with doing. As we potentially expand or, get to reaching the farther areas in our service area, it might look a little different, but right now it's working. And I think I mentioned this, but team size for the current workload, the three of us, I think it's a great number for what we're aiming to do right now. Okay, challenges. Again, the SOPs and checklists, while they're necessary, they are pretty time consuming to write with the level of detail that's required. I do feel like at times it has been a slow go with getting some of the pieces launched because of this. And then a lot of papers to keep track in the field. Right now it's just old school. Like here are the checklists for the ag techs to fill out when they are delivering a piece of equipment. And while before our second agricultural technician was hired, it was Juan and myself out there doing it, and I'm doing the paper shuffle. So, like ideally, it would be great to have these checklists on an iPad to be able to do it that way. But I've also been told that I need a paper pencil record of everything. So, we're just doing it old school for now, and we'll see. We'll see where we end up. Training, I mentioned that we're still trying to find the best approach and doing a combination of things. I'm one of the things I'm thinking about is creating maybe a regular calendar for at least maybe the classroom portion of the front loader and spreader trainings at Kearney, and we'll see how that works. Troubleshooting issues in the field. We're new at this, and we don't use this equipment in the way that the farmers that we're lending it to, use it. And so we're trying to figure out, okay, when there's an issue that happens, is it something that we can solve ourselves? Who do we call? I think it's just a matter of the more times things get borrowed, the more exposure we have to the things that are going on, the better we're going to have a better ability to address those things. And then I mentioned potential gray areas with implementing the fee structure and why I put that there. So, okay, next slide. Okay, so right now we have an equipment lending survey out to a lot of different organizations around the state or technical service providers around the state to see what kind of lending activity is currently going on, be it, very informal to, a formal operation. So if you are in the audience and you have not had the opportunity to fill out that survey, I strongly encourage you to do so, and we would appreciate your participation. And based on some of the preliminary results that I have from the survey, Elizabeth was able to take some of that, preliminary data and put it on a map for us so we can see roughly where some equipment lending is going on in the state. So thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, and thank you for having me today. And if you have any questions beyond this time together, you please feel free to either call or email me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Amber. And I just put oh wait, sorry. I'm putting I have a lot of links to share with people. So I just, that QR code that Amber had up on her screen to take that survey, if you aren't able to scan that with your phone, I just put the link, it's a Google form in the chat for folks to have access to. And we'll also send this as a follow-up email to everyone. So thank you, Amber, for putting that together. Again, with the cooperative mindset. I don't think they necessarily needed to do this survey, but we're trying to figure out how we can all collaborate across the state to identify who's doing what, how we can work together. Some of us have to follow more formal liability systems and processes, right? While others are doing more informal approach. So there's lots of different ways to do these things. We want to make sure we're all helping each other do that. And so, yeah, and that map that we shared, yeah, was very rough go, but it just shows you all the counties across the state that already are providing lending services. So really excited to see that there's already so much happening in California. We also have a shared Google folder that we wanted to share with all the participants, and let me put this in the chat as well. So these are from some of our partners. Amber, Patrick, if any or anyone in the audience is welcome to add to these folders as well. If you guys have anything that you can share that you're comfortable sharing with the general public, templates, leases. We also have a list of just tool lending resources as a Google Doc that's in this folder. You all have access to this. We encourage you to pull from it as you need, to add to it, and hopefully we can help the collective effort through that shared folder. And yeah, we have just a few minutes here, so I'd love to have some time for Q&A with our panelists. There were some amazing examples shared. I know we have some questions that have come up around training was one that I thought was relevant because I know that's something that everyone has had challenges with, and we know it's a big need for farmers in general. So yeah, curious to hear from the panelists if anyone wants to expand on training needs or your experiences trying to train. Maybe it doesn't work out, so you just do the tractor work for them, as it sounds like Patrick is doing right now. So yeah, curious if anyone wants to speak more.
I would like to say something about training. We've mostly done our training, kind of like when we deliver the equipment, we go through the training with the farmer or um, have a worksheet that they go through if they feel pretty comfortable with the equipment already, but we just want to make sure that they know everything there is to know. But I think the ones that have been kind of the most successful and the most organic for us have been when one farmer is um, going to be using a piece of equipment in kind of next in line or soon. They will go to the the farm that's using that piece of equipment before them. And so it can be kind of like this peer-to-peer training. So there's this and sometimes we even held it as a group. And we did one that was even a Zoom demonstration, I guess. And so that we could demonstrate how to operate the combine for people who, there were a group of us who kind of came together for a field day to learn how to use the combine and the mini combine. And then, but we also did it as a Zoom meeting so that people who weren't able to come could also participate. So I think, yeah, depending on what your constraints are, I think that kind of like the field day model seems great because you can get a lot of people trained at the same time. But maybe there's some flexibility too. Like you can come to the field day in person, but if you can't come to the field day in person, maybe you can learn from the farmer who's using it just before you, and you can help them out a little bit too, and that kind of thing. So that's been kind of what we've had the most success with.
Thanks for sharing that, Rebekka. I love that model.
I'll add that, yeah, that training component is definitely something that um, can vary based off the piece of equipment. I know that some of our districts do um, varying training events throughout the year in a like optional kind of way. I will say that there's a couple that have required trainings for anybody that want to rent, especially the BCS tractor. So they'll have usually one or two, usually like a spring and then a summer training event that people that want to rent that piece of equipment have to do prior to being able to rent it.
Thanks for that, Ian. Amber or Patrick, do you guys want to add to anything?
Um, we're a little bit unique because a lot of what we're lending is less technical, but we're also a training program. So a lot of that is happening before people even need to get the tools or to borrow the tools. So we do make sure that in our training programs that there's a focus on the types of tools that we loan so that they're getting that background right away.
That's a great model. And yeah, I know Amber, you already spoke to it a bit with yours, or do you want to add anything? No. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I don't really have anything additional to add to what I already said. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, I know we were hoping for a little bit more time for Q&A with everyone, but this goes till 9:15. So we're just at that time now. I'm hearing here with some of sorry, I'm seeing some of the chat things here. Oh yeah, OSHA tractor certification. Um, yeah, these are all great ideas. So we can uh, plug these for now. I think this is a continuing conversation. The Prop 4 funding, I think, there's always a time needed for the release of those funds. So I think the program has to be established first. I see someone from the CDFA has just posted in the chat some updates on that, but I think, later this year, 2027 is kind of the timeline for that program to get rolled out, as I understand it. But if anyone wants to correct me, please feel free to. So yeah, we really appreciate you all sharing. And again, we're hoping that this is just a continuous conversation that we can all have across the state. We can all collaborate together on this. We have the Google Drive, we have that survey. Amber, I believe the group is planning to have some type of working group come out of that survey results. So there will be opportunity to get more engaged with these efforts and work with others across the state. So please keep an eye out for that. We'll share these resources as they come out. Make sure you're subscribed to CAFF's newsletter. If there are any announcements, things like that we'll send through that list. And yeah, I know we're at time, so I'll have to wrap up and hand it back over to Evan. But thank you to our panelists for participating and sharing your knowledge and experiences with all of us.
And thank you, Elizabeth, for hosting a wonderful panel here. And I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the conference. We hope to see you at the next workshop.
Thank you.